Good morning, friends. I'm Ashok Kumar, and today I'm going to discuss first chapter of the book First Flight of Class 10th Language and Literature, A Letter to God. This chapter is written by G.L. Fuentes. It is always important for us to know about the author before reading the text because it gives us a clear-cut idea about his writing style and his attitude towards life. So let's know what is written in the next slide about the author. Gregorio Lopez by Fuentes was a Mexican novelist, poet, and journalist. He was one of the leading chroniclers of the Mexican Revolution. He was born on July 11, 1897 at Lanzarote in Germany islands. He first went to sea as a deck boy with his father at the age of 10. As a teenager, Fuentes worked on cargo ships that went out of the Canary Islands to Trinidad and Puerto Rico. He also sailed to the Spanish parts of Valencia and Isabela to South America. He migrated permanently to Cuba at the age of 22. Fuentes, a lifelong cigar smoker, died from cancer in 2002 at the age of 105 years. So, there was some information about GL Fuentes which I could collect from internet. Now, let's find what is the theme of the chapter. The story A Letter to God by G.L. Fuentes highlights immense power in man's innocent faith in God. It teaches us that if man has childlike faith in God, he can accomplish anything considered impossible. If with this faith man asks God for help, God responds, though through his own peculiar channels, and fulfills man's any urgent legitimate desire. In this story, Lancho has been portrayed as a deeply spiritual man. He had immense faith in God's goodness and generosity. After his crop was destroyed in a storm, he wrote a letter to God requesting him to send him 100 pesos. His faith was rewarded. God helped him through the postmaster since Since the postmaster had only 70 pesos, he sent them all to maintain Lancho's faith in God. The innocent Lancho thanked God for his help. He also wrote another letter to God asking him to send 30 more pesos. He appealed to God to send the money through some other means as he suspected the post office employees were crooks. There are two themes in the story A Letter to God, blind faith, and two sides of the same story. Blind faith. The story reflects the blind faith of the peasant. The crops are destroyed by the storm, but the peasant takes it as a divine action. He writes a letter to God, and finding the money, he believes that it has been given by God Himself. When he finds 70 pesos, he is not pleased as he thinks that God must have given 100 pesos, but the postman might have stolen 30 pesos. The story reflects the mentality of illiterates and poor people of villages and also the sympathetic nature of people like postmen. Two sides of a story. The other theme which is mainly reflected in this short story is the two different sides of the same story. Lancho, the farmer, is an uneducated person and full of blind faith. He is unaware of the reality, hence, rather than thanking the employees of post office, he calls them greedy and bunch of crooks. This is the irony in the story. So there are two themes, blind faith of a person on God and the mentality of illiterates and poor people of villages and sympathetic nature of people like postmen. Now let's see briefly what is there in the story. So, before going through the story, let's have an introduction. The story, A Letter to God by G.L. Fuentes, revolves around the idea of having unquestionable belief in something. The story is set in a Latin American country. Lancho, the farmer who is protagonist of the story, writes a letter to God seeking help from the Almighty after discovering his entire crop yield destroyed by a devastating hailstorm. Although his wishes get fulfilled partially, if not completely, he is ungrateful in the end and questions the honesty and the modesty of the postmaster who actually helped him with money in the name of God. Now, story in brief. So, first heading is Lancho's house and crop. Lancho had his lonely house in the village. It was situated on the top of a low hill. From there, one could see the river and the fields. Lancho had a good crop, but it needed rains badly. Then it starts raining. Lancho saw the sky in the north. It had rain clouds. His wife was preparing the dinner. He told her that by God's wish it would rain. Soon big drops of rain began to fall. Lancho went out to feel the rain on his body. He was very glad. He said that drops of rain were like new coins. Hailstorms and loss therefrom. But soon the hail rained on everywhere. The fields became white as if covered with salt. The crop was totally destroyed. Lancho became sad. He felt that they would go hungry that year, so they would have no seed for the next crop. Then Lancho writes to God. But Lancho has a single hope, help from God. He was sure that no one dies in hunger. He had a great belief in God. The following Sunday, he went to the post office. He wrote a letter to God to send him 100 pesos. He wrote God as the address. Postmaster collects money for Lancho. An employee of the post office showed this letter to the postmaster. The postmaster laughed seeing the address. He wished to have such a faith in God. He had an idea to answer the letter, but reading it, he found that the writer needed money. It was to keep faith of the writer, so he asked all his friends and employees to contribute some money. Money sent to Lancho. Postmaster could collect only 70 pesos this way and put the money in an envelope and addressed it to Lancho. He wrote a single word on it, God as signature. Lancho receives the money. The following Sunday, Lancho came to the post office. He asked if there was any letter from him. He was given that letter. Lancho did not show any surprise on seeing the money. He got angry when he counted the money. He felt that God couldn't have made any mistake. The story in brief. Next heading, Lancho's letter to God. Calls post office employees crook. In no time, Lancho wrote another letter to God. He put it into the mailbox. The postmaster opened it. Lancho had written in that letter that he had received only 70 pesos, but he had asked for 100 pesos. He asked God to send him the rest, but the God should not send it through the mail. It was because the post office employees were crooks. So, we have discussed story briefly. I request you all to please go through the text and read it thoroughly to answer the following questions and to get profound perception of the story. Thank you. That's all for today. Have a nice day.